You report that there's some new life and new blood on the progressive side of the equation. Huh?
Yeah, a lot of this has been ignored as we watch the Republican Party implode and shut down the government and then form their own circular firing squad and start shooting at each other. But on the Democratic side, even though they were totally unified against the idiocies of Senator Cruz and the Tea Party Republicans, there is the beginnings of a very large debate about where the country ought to go, particularly around economics. And you see it with some of the most attractive leaders in the Senate: Elizabeth Warren, Sherrod Brown, Jeff Merkley, Senator Whitehouse, Tammy Baldwin. And these are people who are leading the beginnings of a revolt, really, against the dominant economics of the Democratic Party since Clinton.
Bernie Sanders, you could put on that list, too.
Bernie Sanders, to be sure, which has been forged really out of the Wall Street wing of the party, the dominant economics, by Bob Rubin and his acolytes. And the first kind of casualty in the war, if you will, has been Larry Summers, when the president,
thank God,
trotted out the notion of nominating Larry Summers to head the Federal Reserve. This was really to lock in one of the great acolytes of Bob Rubin, someone who not only was for Wall Street economics, but had profited from it in the revolving door of going in and out of government. Led by Sherrod Brown and Jeff Merkley and others, the revolt against that nomination was really quite surprising and quite strong, to the point where finally Summers decided he better withdraw his nomination because the fight would be too brutal.
Wasn't it disappointing for Barack Obama to even consider, sort of out of sync for him to even consider Larry Summers, or was it?
No, I don't think it's out of sync. It's been disappointing for a long time. Obama came into office really as we saw the collapse of Rubinomics and Reaganomics. That is, the conservative economics of the last 30 years went bankrupt in the fall of the economy and the implosion caused by Wall Street's excesses. And so it was a time for a very different kind of economics. And in the beginning, Obama laid out elements of that economics, but he surrounded himself with Clinton's economic team. Summers, Geithner, Furman, and a range of others who come out of Bob Rubin's lap and the team that put together new democratic economics under Clinton. And the elements of that economics, deregulating Wall Street, free trade that really let multinationals run us blind, kind of concern about growth but no concern about inequality or how the rewards were shared, kind of scorn for organized labor. All of those elements were part of the failure. And yet this team under Obama, of which Summers was certainly a leader, has really preserved a lot of that economics to the extent they could in the ashes.
So we have the defeat of the possible nomination of Larry Summers as one of the signs of this new activity. And we talk often here with Sherrod Brown, and we've just once interviewed Elizabeth Warren, but Bernie Sanders, a frequent guest. They're making their mark in the Senate. In New York, we also see an emerging economic progressive, right? And Bill de Blasio.
Right, and this shows the political potency of this position, this new populist insurgency, which is de Blasio running in Bloomberg's New York. Really went after the mayor. He pitched his campaign as an underdog.
Totally the anti-Bloomberg.
Right. Yeah, and it was totally around populist themes. He's promised to raise taxes on the very wealthy and put that money into preschool for all kids in New York. He promised to force landlords building high-rent condos to put aside money for affordable housing at the same time. So he promised to end the kind of stop and frisk, stop everybody who looks like they might be a person of color on the street policies in New York, and go back to a policing that focused on serious crimes. And so this notion that he came from way back, he was the clear underdog, really almost off the charts, to win handily in the Democratic primary, and he will win in a couple weeks in the general.
He's still got like a 50% lead in the general. Right?
It kind of shows, and New York City is an interesting microcosm in some ways. You know, it has hundreds of thousands of millionaires, but half the population is in poverty. And so this is the kind of America that's getting built out of this terribly inequitable system of rewards we have, and this is the beginnings of a populist politics, it seems to me, that may spread.
So, where does this lead? Does this lead to kind of a total change in the Democratic Party and Democratic Party politics? And
well, it's going to be a huge fight.
It's not the dominant factor yet. In the
right. It's going to be a huge fight. You've got the Wall Street wing with lots of money and very attractive people over there, attracted by the easy road to politics. So, Cory Booker, who just won the Senate nomination in New Jersey, is famous or infamous, depending on your politics, for chastising Obama for even mentioning that Romney worked for an equity fund that carved up companies. So you've got the Wall Street wing. It will have a lot of money and a lot of very attractive candidates. On the other hand, what's interesting is the beginnings of a formation where you've got the most attractive leadership in the Senate. Progressives like Keith Ellison will be on this show, and an agenda coming out of the House Progressive Caucus. The leaders of the rising American electorate, that is the Obama majority of women, people of color, and young people who are sinking in this economy and need a different kind of economic policy. And then the organized base of the party and organized labor, Move On, the online activists, et cetera. All of those can be consolidated now around a much more populist economics than the president has thus far been representing. And I think you will see this emerging in fights over issues. So if we come out with the Pacific Trade Accord that the president's now negotiating, which is basically a NAFTA on steroids, if you will, a free trade accord that gives the multinationals more scope to ship jobs abroad and more protections for their investments abroad, and puts America once more into a competition with low-wage labor across the world. I think you're going to see a huge fight around that. And there are going to be these kind of fundamental fights about the nature of our economic policy that we haven't really seen in America for a while. We've been fighting off the barbarians of the right. We haven't had a serious fight about where the country ought to go yet, and this is going to be the emergence of that fight.
Oh, yeah, I look forward to that fight. That's great.